Of all the stakeholders we discussed in the previous tutorial around stakeholder management, the most important, the most critical, of course, is the relationship you have between you as the project manager and your sponsor. Your sponsor is your number one stakeholder. It's that simple. Research has shown consistently that the quality, the openness, the honesty, the transparency, and the effectiveness of the relationship you have with your sponsor is probably the biggest single determinant towards project success or failure. So, getting your relationship right with your sponsor from day one is super, super critical. My suggestion is when you get the chance to first meet with your sponsor, rather than just have a general catch up, though that's useful, and get a feel of how that sponsor works and how you're going to work with them, I suggest a much more structured approach, which I call a sponsor brief. In that brief, which typically would last between half an hour to an hour, depending on the size and risk of the project, you have a conversation with your sponsor around a set of topics. These include success. What is the definition of project success according to your sponsor? What is in the sponsor's head around what matters most to the sponsor in terms of succeeding? Is it how you engage stakeholders? Is it budget? Is it deadline? Is it benefits? And we'll talk a lot more about that in this series where we look at the slider tool, which helps you have that conversation. Other conversations you should have during that initial sponsor briefing session is, what are the expectations the sponsor has around the end result? Think of it as the big picture. What is the big picture that the sponsor wants to achieve or help achieve by delivering this project? Think of it as the big why the project's happening, and we'll cover that in the next video series around the O3 model, the outcome, objective, output. Other things you should discuss are what I call rules of engagement. Rules of engagement include how often do you want to meet with the sponsor face to face? Do you want to meet monthly, weekly? An indicator here is the risk of the project. The higher the risk of the project, the faster the cadence should be, the more regular the cadence between meetings between you and your sponsor. Things such as, what information does the sponsor want to see in the project report? How do they want to get that report? Do they want it face to face, etc., etc.? To me, a thing that often is forgotten is what I call the protocols for an escalation. Protocols for escalation cover the situation where you uncover in your project a situation that's going to turn you red or has turned you red. You want an agreement with your sponsor up front that you can see the sponsor immediately. You don't need to wait, because typically the longer you wait, the worse that red situation is going to become. How do you want the sponsor to respond to that? I mean, if you say, look, I'm going to come and tell you occasionally the project's in trouble, I'd prefer it if you don't yell at me. You could try that. It's that sort of thing. How fast do you want the sponsor to make decisions in that escalation process? What's the priority? Have an agreement that if something goes really wrong and the sponsor's in a meeting, you have the right to go in and say, I need to see you now. We need to solve this now. Get those sort of protocols around how you escalate sorted out front. It's a key part of setting up your projects for success. In this set of tutorials, we're going to look at what's called the success sliders. And this is a powerful tool to structure your conversation with your sponsor around defining project success. The best time to define project success is up front. The worst time is the day you go live.